All right, so this is not going to be pretty because I want to just get this done. Hopefully it will be clear because that's what's important to me. So remember, when we talk about grammar, we have words. Words are simple. They're just like words. Boy. We have phrases. You know about prep phrases. They begin with a prep. They end with an object of a prep. And now we have this thing called a participial phrase. This is where our lesson is for today. Those are supposed to be stars. And then, of course, you know you have clauses, and clauses are subjects and verbs working together. And at this point, you know we have independent clauses, we have dependent clauses, adverb, adjective, and noun. That's the noun clause we did not learn. Okay, but we learned about adverb and adjective clauses, and you should know that. And I want to just capitalize this I in independent. So we've got the independent clause, we've got the dependent clause, and that's what clauses are. But this is where the lesson will be today. Phrases, groups of words, and we're going to be learning about the participial phrase. All right. And as Scooby Doo asked Veronica, or whoever that is, well, in order to understand participial phrases, do you know what a participle is? And that's where we start because a participial phrase, just so you know, is going to have a participle in it. All right. So, what's a participle? A participle is a form of a verb. So, it's essentially a verb. And this is how people get confused because they go, well, wait a minute, that's a verb. Yes, it is a verb, but participles are verbs used as adjectives. So, in the sentence, it's going to be doing the work of an adjective, which you know is to describe a noun. It will describe a noun. But because it's a form of a verb, it's called a participle. And then, of course, a participial phrase is a participle plus all the other words that work with the participle. All right? So I'm going to teach you about participles and then we're going to see how they show up in a phrase. And that's the lesson. And I'm only going to do half of it today and then I'll do half of it next time. All right, so in order to understand forms of verbs, because that's what we're talking about here. Sorry. Well, I won't bother underlining it. It's late. Why can't I underline it though? I need a pen. Okay, so let's look at some verb forms. All right. So when you are a verb, you have four forms. You have the present form, also called the infinitive. You have the present participle. There's our key word here, participle. You have the past form of the verb, and then you also have the past participle. So hopefully, just by the language, you know we're going to be working with verbs in this column and in this column. So let's do an example. Let's use the verb. Everyone likes to start with run. Run is fine with me. So in the infinitive, it's to run. In the present participle, it's running. Notice you add ing. That's what this is telling you. In the past, it's ran. And in the past participle, you're using it with has, had, or have. So you would say, I have, and the word would be run. You wouldn't say, I have ran. You wouldn't say I have running. You would say I have run. Let's try another one. Let's try walk. The infinitive or the present is to walk. The present participle is walking. We add the ing. The past participle is walked. And the regular past is walked. And the past participle, you add has, have, or had, and you have I have walked. So in this case, these two are the same, but in this case, they weren't. So don't always assume that it's the same. It changes. Let's do one more. Let's do eat. To eat, eating, ate. Uh-oh, why did that do that? Sorry. Ate and have, has, or had eaten. Okay, so that's the past participle, and this is the present participle. All verbs, every single verb does this. Okay, so we turn the page. We're going to work with run again because I think that's what my example was. So it's to run. Sorry. It's running. It's ran. And it's have run. Okay. So notice then that here we're going to work with the present participle. This lesson I'm only going to deal with the present participle. The next video I'll do the past participle, but I want to keep it broken down so that you understand. So we're just going to deal with the present participle for this lesson. All right, so if I pull this down, you'll see the man is running down the street. And if I asked you to label this, you would say something like man. Oh, you'd get rid of the prep phrase. Okay. And you would say something like the man is running, and you would call running the verb. And that's fine. It is a verb. It's a present participle. But notice it has this helper here. Man is running. So if you're going to use the present participle as a verb in a sentence, you will need a helper. Some would argue that this is not a helping verb. I'm going to label it a helping verb. But some would argue, hey, that's not a helping verb. It's a linking verb. And running is a PA. And you could actually make that argument if you wanted. Because remember, this present participle can act as an adjective. And that's what it would be doing if you labeled it like this. I would accept it either way, believe it or not. But if you're going to use it as a verb, know that it has this thing, we call it a helper. If you want, don't call it a helper, call it a linking verb, and tell me that running is an adjective, a predicate adjective. Now, when we talk about participles, we can move them into the adjective position. So now if I change my sentence, my new subject is man. Okay, same as that one actually. Now the verb that's working with him is raced. So this is the clause, man raced. And of course we still have our prep phrase, so we'll leave that there. Running now, however, is describing the man. So now we see it in a more sort of comfortable sense as an adjective because we like to see that adjective in front of the noun. It makes us happy. Okay, so here it is again, running, 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 present participle, and here it is in that adjective position. We like it there. But again, you could argue that it's still an adjective, even though it's in the predicate adjective position. It's still an adjective. But this is the kind of thing you would do. Now, how do we use it in a participial phrase? We need to add some information to running to make it a phrase. So I scroll down here and I've added some information. I've said running like crazy. Now I still have the man. Oops, sorry. I still have the man. He's still racing. I should have an ed on that. He's still raced down the street. Okay, that's still my main clause. But now I've got this participial phrase. I've got my participle here. Notice this whole thing is describing the man. What's the man doing? He's running like crazy. So all of this is describing the man. So it's a participial phrase. It's an adjective, but it's a phrase because it's not just the participle, it's the participle in these words too. Running like crazy. All right. And then if you remember comma rule number 3, I think, was introductory words, phrases, or clauses. Well, this is an introductory phrase. And did you see where I put my comma? Yep, I put it in. All right, let's turn the page. Basically, I'm just going to do another example. So let's do walking. So to walk is the present infinitive. Walking is the present participle. Walked is the past. And have, has, or had walked is the past participle. So I don't have any examples here. I don't think I gotta put it in. All right, so let's use it as a verb with a helper or linking and predicate adjective, whatever you want to call it. Okay. I am walking home after school. Okay. I've got a prep phrase after school. Subject is I. You can call this a helper and a verb if you want. Okay, it is still a verb. We need a verb in our sentence. Or you could call it a linking, and you could call this a PA. I think this is the more sophisticated way to do it, but it gets us to the same place either way. All right, so that's using the present participle as a verb. Helper, main verb. Now let's use it as a participle. Scroll down. I could say, walking, I went home after school. Okay? Now, in this situation, I've moved that participle, and we like it. Sometimes we like it better that way, and that's fine. So if I label it, I have after school, I have I went home. Now, walking is describing me, and it's taking this idea of an introductory word, which is why it has a comma. Now, let's see if I can turn it into a phrase. Let's try this. I'm looking at my clock. I'm almost out of time. Walking quickly, comma, I went home after school. Okay, so the labeling is the same. I is the subject, went is the verb, home, after school is a prep phrase, but this has become a participial phrase. It's not just a participle anymore, it's a phrase because now it's two words that describe me. Okay, so I'm going to turn the page quickly because I'm running out of time. This was going to be another example, but I'm not going to do it. This is practice, so put it on pause, do the practice, and then you can flip the page and see if you can get some answers. See if I put any in. Answers would go to, I'm not going to have time to put in answers, I don't think. I'm going to try though. Singing. And then as a verb, I was singing. As just a plain participle, the singing bird flew away. And as a phrase, singing loudly, the bird flew away. I think I did it. All right, guys. See ya. Have fun.